You're listening to Parasearch Radio. News, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or their affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Paranormal Concept Show. I'm your host, Paul Rook, and on tonight's show, we have, as always, a lovely Kerry Greenaway. Hello, Kerry.
Hello, all right?
Yeah, I'm okay. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. You've been a busy boy.
Oh, no. I can't help it. What have I done this week? It's been a blur.
Blur. Where have you been? Tell everybody where you've been.
I went to the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre. Been up there a couple of weeks now, just for like the afternoon tea and chat sort of thing. I think 2 weeks ago, Neil allowed us to stay in between the point of closing up for his tea afternoons and the evening event, because he has teams in there in the evening. So there's a couple of hours where it's vacant, and he's allowed us to stay in. Just sort of like on our own and do our own little tiny mini experiments and stuff. And last Saturday we'd done the same, and we waited for Barry Guy to turn up with his team.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, really nice guy. And we sat and had a chat with him, and he actually made time for us and sat and talked over certain things. We asked him a few things about the show that he's on, and got a few possible sneaky spoilers, but we was told secrecy, so I can't tell you.
I hate that. Oh, you have to kill me. I love that. I love a sneaky peek.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, it's all going good, and yeah, Barry Guy is absolutely fantastic. So hopefully we get to meet him again and possibly do an investigation with him.
Awesome.
I'm trying to get Jane Harris on board as well at the same time. Yeah.
Cool.
So all good. Yeah. So let's be busy. We've ordered some books to go into the Haunted Antiques Research Centre.
Yes, I saw the picture. It's like a plethora of the Book
Yeah.
of Parasearch.
That's it. I got so excited. I ordered 10. So they're all going down to the centre on Saturday.
Excellent.
So people can pick up their copy then. And yeah, so I think there was on one of the social media feeds, someone's like, "How much is it?" And I said, "$7.99 for the book." I said, £8 if you want me to sign it for you.
Cheeky monkey. Oh my lord, everybody! Oh my lord!
Absolutely, good fun.
Oh, bless him.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but it was a good couple of weekends, and I'm down there again this weekend. Obviously, I'm dropping the books off Saturday, and then I'm helping Neil move on the Sunday.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah,
he's moving downstairs.
I was just obviously Neil's just been on air with the lovely Hazel Ford, and they would before they went on air. I was talking to him about it, and it sounds really, really interesting. It really does sound fascinating. What's going on up that centre. So it's fascinating, isn't it? It's a fascinating case study.
It is. I've not actually been downstairs yet, but someone already has, and they've said how active it is down there already. So I'm quite interested to go down there because we've got they've got live on Monday. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're fine now.
Yeah, they've got Haunted Live going in on Monday, and then Tuesday, Neil's allowed me and Lucy and Jane to do our own investigation in there.
Yeah, because you're doing a show live from there, aren't you, on next Tuesday?
Yeah, next Tuesday we're going to have a little bit of shuffle about. I'm going to be on the Haunted Connection show with Jane, live from the Haunted Antiques Research Centre, and you're taking over the reins for my show.
I am.
Yeah.
With Andy Mercer next Tuesday. We're talking about the occult and the Nazis and the occult.
That's it. So don't wreck my studio too much, will you?
We're going to have a party, mate. That's what me and Andy Mercer are going to do. Do you imagine me and Andy Mercer having a party? You'll find pentagrams drawn on the floor and all sorts have gone on while you were away.
That'd be fun. Yeah, absolutely.
So, explain to me. We're doing a show tonight on the appeal of locations.
Yep.
Where did this come from in your thought patterns?
Okay. Well, a couple of months back, or last year, the Dark Mirror Show did a show on dark tourism. And as the conversation flowed, you didn't really go too much in depth into why people like to go to these places. So I thought, you know what, we could actually discuss it tonight. I mean, not only just dark tourism, but, you know, like the locations that are on the circuits at the moment. You know, why are some more popular than others?
I think what came out of the Dark Mirror... Sorry to interrupt. The Dark Mirror Show was looking at the TV series or the Netflix series that was on. Yeah. And I didn't feel that dark tourism that was showcased was paranormal at all. It was just like locations that were a bit dangerous to your health, really, you know. And I didn't see the appeal of that at all in any way, shape or form. Why would you put yourself in that form of danger, like going to Chernobyl and you know, places like that? So that's kind of the direction they took the Dark Mirror Show in on that night. Whereas, like, for me, I kind of was thinking of it more, I suppose because I'm more involved in the paranormal field and I hadn't really only watched a couple of the dark tourism's episodes. So, for me, the dark tourism thing is a completely separate thing from, like, the paranormal thing. And I don't really get the appeal for the dark tourism side, if that makes sense.
See, no, I think that they are sort of connected because, you know, you've got say, for example, one of the old jails that are around, Bodmin Jail, for example, where people were tortured, killed, murdered and whatever and whatnot. You know, you've got the history and the cruelty and the death in that location. But then equally, you've got that, I mean, you've got the death certainly at Chernobyl. So it's sort of is connected. I mean, there are people obviously that will want to go there and investigate it because of that reason, really, because of the death and stuff that's been going on. But I personally, I would love to go to Chernobyl just simply to soak up the atmosphere and not literally and glow in the dark and stuff, but just be there because it was such a dramatic event in history. And just to visit that location and you get the emotions and you could, you know, you can almost imagine how people would feel just being there when it all kicked off. And
I get it from an urban explorer perspective.
Yeah.
I get it from that perspective. You go in and you're seeing things that literally when they were evacuated, things are just left. And I don't dislike, I quite enjoy actually urban exploration, you know, the YouTube videos that we see and stuff like that. And, you know, of places that have literally been left. I mean, the thought that, you know, what happened that made somebody literally just pack up or not pack up, just walk away. Or did they just die and no one cleared the house? Yeah, you know, what was the circumstances as to why that location was left completely untouched and just left to the elements effectively.
Yeah, and by going there, it almost puts the picture into your mind, and you can almost see and imagine the history, and you know what you've got signs and clues to what could have happened in that particular area, whether people were dragged out or run out or whatever. You know, there's things that you could see that possibly would lead you to that conclusion. And, you know, you can also put a picture, and just because then you're there, you know, you've visited it and you've immersed yourself in that environment. I mean, it's not only Chernobyl, but I'd like to go to Auschwitz as well. And I know that's been in the news and stuff quite recently. And you did the show on it the other week.
It was the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, wasn't it? I think there's a difference here, because I think Auschwitz as a location should be visited, because we should never forget what happened and what the capability of the human nature is, and to stop it where we can. And that's why I think it's really important. And then some of the survivors of Auschwitz actually ended up being integral into it becoming the memorial it is today. So people don't forget. A lot of the, when I was reading about the aftermath of that, the people displacement was so bad that people ended up going back to the camp and then sort of setting up a sort of like a mini home there, because that's where, in a funny kind of way, in a twisted way, it becomes their comfort zone. They know where they stand there, if you know what I mean.
It's like they become institutionalised. And you see that. I mean, a perfect example of that is in the Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah. Because
you had that guy, the old guy that was in prison for so many years, he'd come out and he just couldn't cope with society.
No.
Exactly. And that's... But no, Auschwitz for me, you've got that sort of side of it. But again, to have a walk around and see, I don't know whether the gas chambers and stuff are still there. And
no, they got demolished. They actually got demolished by the Nazis because they were trying to cover it up. But the shacks are still there.
Any sign of them?
Yeah, the ruins are there, and I believe they've built a mock-up. I think they've built an example of what it was like. I could be wrong on that because I haven't visited it myself, but that location in itself, I would visit it. I'll probably be in floods of tears the whole way around. It's not something, it's like an enjoyable experience, but I really believe everybody should visit somewhere like that to really understand the scope of it. It's a bit like, when we talk about America, for us in the UK, it's really hard to comprehend the distances in America because it is so huge, and you're driving miles and miles and miles down a flat road with no scenery. That's what you get when you go to America and, you're driving around there. It's that huge. And I think that's one of those things where you have to do it to comprehend it. We can watch newsreels, we can watch, listen to podcasts, we can watch television programs, we can see it in the newspaper, but to actually completely get it into your psyche, you have to visit it. All the deniers of the Holocaust should visit Auschwitz. They should, because they deny it. How can you deny it? Do you know what I mean? That's what I don't understand about that. So in regards to something like Auschwitz, yes, people should visit. It should be remembered. It's right that it's a memorial for that situation. So we don't. History has a habit, unfortunately, of recreating itself, and this is one thing that should never be recreated. So yes, I do think somewhere like Auschwitz should be visited and remembered and never forgotten.
Well, that's it. I mean, you've got obviously that side of it, but then for me as well, it'd be a case of immersing myself into that environment and trying to imagine what it was like at the time, how scared people were, and all that sort of thing. So it's trying to understand the psychology of people at that period of time. So both with the Nazis and the Jews and whoever else were persecuted there as well. So that's sort of the things that appeal to me.
I can understand that. I can understand that because history is so intertwined with obviously locations, isn't it? And in the UK, we do have so many locations that have got such a vast range of history. So, and it does intertwine with what we do. So history is a huge part of what we do. But you have to get it right. You have to know and research correct history, because we've seen so many times locations come up where the history is sensationalised to sell a location that it's difficult sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I was talking about 30 East Drive earlier today, and I mean, okay, I know it's all. I personally, I believe it's all hyped up. I don't think there's any black monk there, because I've been, and if he's not there, well, if he's there, he was on holiday that week, you know. But I think it's all hyped up. But I do think it is a good location to go and visit because it does, as a ghost hunter doing events and things, I do think it's almost like an insight into how an investigator could do a house investigation.
Is that location is an interesting one, and I did a hell of a lot of research on that particular location myself, and my question was, if it was a poltergeist case back in the the late 60s, and I feel what's happening now is actually created by the ghost hunters. The energy that people's belief systems go in there, that there is still a haunting there, is actually what's creating any, if any, activity that goes on there.
Yeah.
I don't believe that that's still there. I think it is a sensationalised location because of a situation that allegedly happened back in the 60s. You know, at the time it wasn't well documented. It didn't hit the media. It didn't hit the, the SPR didn't look at it. Considering at the time they were looking at things like, the Enfield haunting and stuff like that was around at the time.
Yeah.
And, so if there was another poltergeist case running sort of like at the same time, you'd think it would have hit. It didn't. It got picked up locally, is really what it did. But it didn't really hit the mainstream. And then it only exploded into the paranormal psyche, I suppose you'd call it, the paranormal world, off the back of a film that was done when the lights go out. So, it is interesting to see now people go into a location like that and what they get. And unfortunately, when I was researching it, I was coming across quite a lot of people going, they think it's being faked. They think the activity is actually being created by a person to draw the crowds in to investigate it. And then I see a lot of ghost hunting groups go in and go, well, we looked at that and we didn't come across that. Do you know what I mean? So, or they had a really quiet night, nothing happened, or something did happen, but it was so tenuous. It's a difficult one, that one, because I do wonder if it is something to do with the belief system of people going into the location that creates something. I'm a firm believer of that. The people factor.
Definitely.
So East Drive is a difficult one, but I do think that's been a location that's born out of a sensationalised situation, which would be the film. I mean, even on the night they released the film, they did a big competition of who would want to watch the premiere of the film in the location. That's well documented. And then from that moment on, it hit the paranormal investigation side of things, and the rest they say is history. But the history of the location is really, really interesting. Whatever the history is. I mean, you talked about Chernobyl. We've talked about that. Lucy's brought up Pompeii in there in the chat room. Mm-hmm. That fascinating in regards to the denial of a geological time bomb. Or lack of knowledge on how volcanoes work, quite frankly.
I think it was a lack of knowledge, because I don't think that they didn't have a word for volcano until that erupted, apparently.
Oh,
so they'd never seen one before. Yeah.
But fascinating. Now they're uncovering that town or city. How well preserved it was under all the ash. And actually, again, horrifying. Some of the things they found, I remember seeing pictures of the dog on the chain, twisting, trying to get out the chain, and then it got engulfed and frozen for evermore. And then they found a cave, I believe, where people ran and took shelter, but again were overcome, and they found that perfectly preserved. But just some of the, like the buildings and the mosaics and stuff like that, that is fascinating to me. Archaeology in that way is absolutely incredible. In that way,
absolutely.
We learn so much from those situations.
I mean, that place does appeal to me, but I got that. I think I got that interest from my dad, because he was always into that as well. But there's another town as well called Herculaneum, which is the other side from Pompeii on the volcano, and that's the same. And it's obviously not as well documented as Pompeii, but I'd still love to go to both of them, really. That'd be good.
Fascinating areas. Now, Liam's in the chat room as well. He goes, in regards to locations, I think the popular ones are easy to get drawn to because of history of reported ghost sightings. I personally enjoy locations without a history or very little known about it because it's a chance to investigate properly without any influence already in your mind. And that's a really good point as well. How many times, I had a conversation with Penny about history in regards to this. I say I don't like to research a location before I go in because I work spiritually. So anything I get, if I've researched it, puts a doubt in my mind as to whether or not it was already in my head and it's just pulled forward because I'm now in that location.
Yeah.
Or if I go in blind, like I know nothing about the location, then whatever I get, I can honestly say to myself, forget anybody else, but myself, I know I didn't know that. Bearing in mind, it is very difficult because I've researched so many different topics and for quite a few years now. So the chances are I might have come across it somewhere. But the chances are that tiny little nugget of a name or a date or a situation or something is very unlikely to come out. But I do think you have to take out that, even if you don't research the location, the psychological clues that are actually within a location. You have to be very aware of that. And you take more in than you realise that you do. Because our eye is only picking up something stupid like, for example, this isn't accurate figures, but say 4,000 bits of information at a time, right? Whereas your other side of your brain is actually picking up a hell of a lot more. And we had an example of this when we investigated Rye Gatehouse. I was there doing an investigation, very small location, and we were picking up the name, a name on in a séance environment. We were doing a séance, and this name got picked up. And as I walked down the stairs, in front of us, there's a notice board, and it's packed full of bits of paper and notices and all sorts of stuff. And then in the far left-hand corner, there's a picture of a woman, really small. You wouldn't deliberately have, you would have had to examine the notice board to pick it up. Was a picture of this woman, and underneath was some really small writing, and it had the name in it. And I could not then discount it. I could not count it, as paranormal that we picked that up from that spirit because it was there. Yeah, it was there openly for all to see. Now, I'm not saying someone read that and deliberately brought that to the table because I trusted the team I was with. What I think happened was subconsciously they've picked that up briefly. They've, looking at the notice board, look at the notice board, quick glance over. Subconsciously, they've picked that up without even realising it. And then that's come out within the séance. So that's what I actually think happened there. Now, so I do think you have to be careful. And I also think in people's understanding of environment around them, we all know certain things without even trying. Like, for example, we know in the Blitz, in the war, London, the East End of London and lots of places across London got bombed heavily. If you're investigating that location, you kind of are going to know at some point, the chances are there's going to have been bombing around that area. So, we know what Georgian houses look like. We know Edwardian. We know things like the window tax, which is why a window was blocked up. We know certain things, if you see what I mean. And because of our vast range of historical education, you can't help but know certain things either. So I think you have to be very aware of that when you're hitting locations. But it doesn't take away the appeal of a location. I love, personally, a castle or an oldie-worldy kind of building. Not too keen on more modern buildings. I don't mind, doing war places and stuff like that, but they don't hit me like an old castle does or an old building, an old Tudory type building does. So for me, personally, the appeal for a location for me would be further back in history, the more oldie-worldy ones. Whereas for, say, Richard or Penny, they would love a World War one. She loves an airfield or, anything to do with forts and stuff like that. She loves it. She can't get enough of it. Whereas I'm like, it's fine. I'll do them. But I haven't got the drive to go there as much as I would as if, for example, if you said to me, I've got Dover Castle. I'll be like, yep,
Yeah.
I'm there. Do you know what I mean? For me, that's personal. That's the appeal for me. So what's it for you?
I'm quite into the whole Roman era. So anything Roman, so it could be Roman ruins, or if I was going to go to Italy, I'd love to go to the Colosseum, and places like that. But also medical institutions. So like maybe some of the workhouses. I like the old hospitals, and stuff like that. They're the places I like. I'm still yet to try and get into Thackeray Medical Museum, because that'd be absolutely fantastic.
But this hits your own personal interest in regards to the St. John's thing, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I've gone around museums in London. I've gone through like the Natural History Museum, and I love the skeletons and all things to do with the body. And then you've got like Science Museum next door, or whatever it is, and they've got all the medical stuff on one floor. I love all that. So yeah, no, that's what appeals to me when it comes to locations. If it's medical or Roman, I'm there. Definitely. Or got the St. John link.
So everybody would have a different draw to a different location, as it were.
Yeah, I think they have. For whatever reason. I mean, it's still historical. I mean, yeah, people will have a particular draw to an era. Like you said, with Penny and Richard, you got the wars, and with Richard, it's more the Civil War stuff. So I think in that respect, I think he'd be more drawn to Civil War places, like Oliver Cromwell's house. I'm sure he'd be up for that.
Mm. Yeah, probably.
For that reason, anywhere that's got a priest hole.
I nearly did a Mark Manley Ridge joke there.
No, don't do that.
Wrong show,
save
everybody.
That for Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, save that for Friday. But yeah, I think it is whatever people are into that does sort of spill over, and we all got a passion for history as well, to some degree, and again, that also comes into it, because we're always learning then about those particular events. Whenever I'm doing like Ouija board sessions and things like that, and we get a spirit come through, I always try and get a year, and then next question is, who is the king or queen when you was around? Because then I can try and tie it up and marry it with the facts of the era. So yeah, that's sort of what appeals to me. I don't know if there's anyone in the chat room that wants to jump in and say what locations appeal to them and why.
Well, we've had a comment from Richard himself. He says, if you are a researcher, investigator, I believe it is good practice to research a place before you go. It's not a big no, like some people say. If you're researching, you do need as much information as you can gather before you go on location. This can give you pointers to what to look out for or how to apply the relevant experiments. See, this is one, it's difficult. Because you work in a spiritual way, you don't want to contaminate your spiritual working with too much knowledge. Whereas if you're just a research investigator, then research the heck out of the place and go in and think about experiments that would be relevant. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but you have to be very careful if you work in both ways, because you don't want to contaminate your spiritual garnering of information with the knowledge that you've researched. It's a very difficult one. You have to make a decision, I think, on the night, not on the night, but before you book. What is your capacity in going in? Are you going in purely as a spiritual worker? If you are, then I would suggest you don't, because you would always feel that doubt in your mind if you do what you do get through. And if you're going in as a researcher, investigator, go for it. Research the heck out of that place, because you can use that information to apply relevant experiments and knowledge and stuff like that. Questions regarding EVP sessions, etc., etc. So, but I do think you have to decide before you go what hat you're wearing.
this is where I think the lines do get blurred, because as a paranormal investigator, I think they should be doing research on the place and the activity beforehand, because then they can devise experiments to prove the existence of spirits, and that is what paranormal investigator is for. Where a lot of teams, they say they're paranormal investigators, they go in, they haven't got a clue about the history, they get activity, and then they try and shift the spirits on. Well, that's not a role of a paranormal investigator, that's more spiritual. So for me, that would be a more spiritual, someone like, for example, you, that can do the clearings and things like that, not a paranormal investigator. And then you've got obviously the ones that the ghost hunters that want to go out and just experience whatever's there. So even if they did know the history, it really doesn't make a difference, because they're still going to get their experience.
Yeah.
So this is one of the bugbears with the whole, labelling of people. We're all sort of in it for very slightly different reasons, but we all want an experience out of it at the end of the day.
Yeah, it is. Again, it's down to what hat you're wearing, isn't it? And being very aware of what that hat is, and not mislabeling that hat, I think.
Yeah.
It's.
I mean, when I do a house investigation, I'll have a client come to me and I'll try and get them to do a 2-week diary of what activity happens. Then they submit that to me, and I will go through it and see if there's a pattern, so I know what time roughly I could do the investigation.
Yeah.
And then by knowing what is exactly happening and where and what times, I can then devise an experiment to see whether we can capture any evidence. So as an investigator, that's primarily what I'm there to do. I'm not there to shift the spirit on or anything like that. That's not my job. But if they wanted it gone, then I would contact someone that I know very well that could actually do that for them. So in a way, I'm researching it, gathering the evidence, and then getting them the help that they need.
So what hat appeals to you the most then? Is it the event organising hat? Is it the researching hat? Is it the private case hat? Which hat appeals to you the most?
I love doing the private investigations and the research. That's what I love doing the most. Hence this show.
Well, this is kind of where we're getting at, isn't it? Now, Liam has said one of his favourite locations is Whittington Castle because of the age of the location, and he does love a good castle. Do you think then that road appeal? We talk in like when they do location, like house buying programs and that. They talk about curb appeal, don't they? Do you think that has a lot to do with the appeal of a location?
And what's curb appeal?
How it looks, how the house looks.
Okay, I've just not heard that expression before.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I watch too many selling housing programs.
Yes, I'm not normally that early. Absolutely. No, I do think it is how it looks. If it looks old, I mean, a majority of people out there will go to a location because it looks old. And if that's the case, it's got lots of history to it and is almost certainly got a spirit or two in there. I think that's the mindset of most people. But in my experience, I've gone to places that have only been built the last 5 years, and they've been more active than some of the castles I've been to. So for me, I've had that experience, so I know that just because a place looks old doesn't mean to say that it's active.
No.
So I think people should have a little bit more of an open mind, and and if someone claims that it's haunted, at least go there once and have a look at it.
So you shouldn't judge a book by its cover.
No, definitely not. I mean, I ask, by all means, just message other investigators that have possibly been there and say, what did you think of it? Because, you're going to get a mixed bag of reviews anyway, and just make your own mind up and experience it for yourself. That's what I've done with 30 East Drive. I heard the hype. I've heard that people didn't really like it. So I thought, you know what, I think, you know, we got the opportunity from Bill Bungay to go and investigate it overnight for free, in return for advertising his film. So we went there, done an overnight investigation. We really didn't find anything, but I've still been there and I've investigated it. But there are still people out there that do go and get stuff, as you said earlier. So
yeah, I wouldn't discount it, but I wouldn't be. It's not high on my hit list, if you know what I mean.
No.
Mind you, to be fair, getting me out in the field these days is like winkle picking, to be fair, but there you go. Going back to the chat room, Lucy has said she agrees with you. She's had more at the Haunted Antiques Research Centre than at Harwich Redoubt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Harwich Redoubt is a nice location. It's quite. There's plenty of room for teams to go. Maybe do the team share. Yeah, you could quite easily get 3 teams in there and rotate around, because it is literally a circle with loads of rooms around it. So, you know, you could probably get about 3 teams in there. And it's not an expensive location.
No.
And you do get a little bit of activity. So it's a nice starting point for any new team. Yeah. It just gives you a little bit of a taster, what to expect, and it just, you know, going to other locations just builds from there. So I would always suggest that Fort Harwich Redoubt is probably one of the first places I would have gone, and I've done that a few times.
Yeah, I've done Harwich Redoubt a few times, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, but at the Haunted Antiques Research Centre, I've experienced things there. I go there quite a lot, as we've already discussed, and I've experienced something nearly every time I've been there.
I have to say, I think there is a complete difference, isn't there, from like Harwich Redoubt, using that as an example. That's all.
Yeah.
There is no curb appeal. You turn up, there's a gate, and it's not until you're inside the location, a bit like Fort Landguard, as Richard has mentioned in the chat room. You know, there's no curb appeal there at all. It's, you know, you think, oh, is this it? Then you get inside the location, and that's where it hits. Whereas somewhere like Warwick Castle or Combe Abbey, you've got that long sweeping driveway, and it's amazing. Oh my God, look how beautiful that place is. Yeah. There's a lot more curb appeal to it, but you are restricted in the larger places to where you can investigate. You know, there is only you haven't got the entire castle. You know, they're a working building at the end of the day. A lot of the locations I'd like to investigate, you can't investigate, actually, because they don't allow investigations in. A lot of the, for me, the appeal to do something like to get me out in the field, it would have to be something, I don't know, it's a weird one. I really want to do Jamaica Inn. That's got a lot of appeal to me. And I think that's because of the remoteness of it and the history of it. And I've read about it in, you know, the Daphne du Maurier books and, you know, Pole Dance and all that. You know, so,
I mean, I've been there.
You've been there?
I've been there a couple of times. Yeah, twice I think I've been there, because we've gone on like family holidays to Cornwall and stuff like that, so we've passed it. And each time we've just stopped there for dinner and a drink. But no, it is a nice little place. They've got like a little museum and gift shop there as well.
Yeah, exploring the history of it.
Yeah. I mean, even done Bodmin Jail one day. That was a good one.
Yeah. You say you like a jail, though, don't you?
Yeah. People were tortured and stuff in there, so yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's just soaking up the atmosphere, and I like doing that at all locations.
It is about atmosphere as well, isn't it? I mean, atmosphere has a lot to do with it, doesn't it? That adds to the appeal, I think, of a location. If you've been there, the minute you walk in, you can, you go, oh. There are various times throughout an investigation I found that where things it's gone flat. Everything feels like it's gone flat. You can feel that, and bearing in mind I'm working on a spiritual level, so for me it's pulling that energy back down to where you're interacting with that energy level, but sometimes it goes flat, so it's hard work. You know, going back to the chat room, Richard has said he enjoys visiting Fort Landguard. The fort itself is very well maintained and very much intact. Interesting place to investigate. We tripped around that place quite a lot. Lucy says her favourite location is the Galleries of Justice. So many layers of history and levels of activity. And isn't that it as well, where we get levels of activity? So you're not going to get one level of history, I suppose. You could get it from any level of history because it goes back so far. You've got so many different levels. Do you think people go into locations sometimes and get stuck in the period of time of one incarnation? Like the Galleries of Justice, take that for an example. It's had different. The building itself has had different hats. One time it was the Gallery of Justice. Another time it was a courthouse. Another time it was I don't know. Now it's a museum. I don't know the history of the Galleries of Justice clearly, but
yep.
It's had different hats, is my point. Do you know what I mean? It's different incarnations of what the building was used for. And you might get a spirit that's come through from any of those different time periods, not necessarily the one it's set up as. So it could be set up as a museum now to reflect its worst time, like, when it was a horrible, courtroom that sentenced millions of people to death and torture people in its cellar. I don't know. But, do you think people get stuck into that mindset because of the way it's set out and miss cues and spiritual activity from other time frames that aren't necessarily on display?
So I think sometimes people can be easily suggested, and if anything happens, then they jump to that conclusion that it's, if there's a Victorian display, for example, and then they get a spirit and they go, oh yeah, it's Victorian, because that's what's on display. But on a spiritual, mediumistic point of view, I think mediums work on different vibrations, and so does the different time periods. Mm. So, for example, you could go in and experience someone from the Georgian period, where someone else could go in and then experience someone, I don't know, from the medieval period.
Yeah.
It goes back that far, I don't know. But, it's different every time. And even if you do go back there, there might be changes in your life that's changed your vibration.
Yeah. So
you could go in and rather than experiencing the same thing last time, you get someone either later or earlier. Mm. So it makes sense, absolutely. But again, that's just another appeal. I mean, once someone goes somewhere and investigates and gets activity, then they're almost hooked.
Yeah.
It's like they've got to go back there, no matter what happens. If they get activity on the first time, they want to go back. That's what I found. It's
very... I totally agree with that. I think once you've had an experience somebody, somewhere even, not somebody... If you've experienced that, you want to go back. You want that adrenaline hit. You want. Actually, a lot of people want to go back to see if they can explain why they had that experience at that time. If they can recreate it, whether they can connect with that spirit again, or have the same sort of activity, or debunk it. Work out what could have happened to make that happen the first time, and see if it is explainable. I'm finding that a lot in the field now. We've got to go back. We've got to try and understand it. We've got to try and see how or why that would have happened. And if it can't be explained logically, then can we connect, with it again? I don't know. I find that a lot with the paranormal field. Amazing activity. We've got to go back. Why are you going back? Are you going back for another personal experience, or are you going back to debunk it? 99% of the time, they're going back to try and explain it, of why they had that.
Absolutely. I do it all the time. I mean, as you know, the Haunted Antique Centre, I keep going back there. And each time, I talk to Neil, and we've devised a few experiments that we want to run. One in particular, he's just posted up about Ouija boards, because we want, if there's anyone out there that has got an old Ouija board that they don't want, please can you send it in to me at the Haunted Antiques Research Centre, because we want to disprove some of the myths and stuff about the Ouija board. All the things you shouldn't do to the board, we want to do them, basically.
Interesting.
That's one of the experiments we've been discussing, and that's the one we're going to lead with first. So hopefully we can get some people sending in their old boards that they don't want anymore. And some of them we're going to experiment on. The others will be displayed in the centre. So, yeah.
Isn't that what it's all about, though?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, me and Neil got this good rapport going, and, yeah, we pretty much can use the centre for any research experiments that we want. So, yeah, we're planning quite a few.
Excellent.
But as for other locations, though, I do like to go and just, where my team will go off and investigate, I'll be on my own and I'll find somewhere quiet just to sit and soak in the atmosphere and have my own personal experiences, and then try to debunk them. That's what I do on a public event. Everyone's off doing their own thing, and I'm doing my own investigation. I like that.
I would like to say he does have a team of people that are leading the people on the event. He is just an overseer, so he can do that. He doesn't just go, right, this is your location, off you go, everybody. To people who are booked on, I would like to say there are people that are running the event for him, which gives him the opportunity to do what he wants to do. But it's true, isn't it? It is true that if you get the opportunity to go off and do your own thing in a location, then that's really... I enjoy that bit, you know, where I can disappear off and do my little thing and have my personal experience, if it happens. I would say these days I'm more sceptical, which has actually brought me into, conflict with my spiritual beliefs, you know, at times, which kind of makes it a bit difficult. And it does depend, I think, sometimes on who you surround yourself with. To what side wins. It's almost like two wolves. We talk about the two wolves on each shoulder. And sometimes my sceptical side overrides my spiritual. And keeping that balance in is very, very difficult sometimes, I find, personally, because that's how I work. I started in this field as a spiritual worker. I am a spiritual worker. I work closely with crystals and minerals. But trying to back that up from a skeptical perspective has brought that into conflict. But I do think that I maintain my integrity and my spiritual side when I'm working in the field. I try not to over-research a location before I go, but having done all the shows that I do, it's very difficult sometimes. But I think that's one of the reasons I don't overly investigate as well, is because of that conflict that I feel sometimes within myself. In regards, there is an appeal of a lot of locations out there, but the appeal for research and my private spiritual work kind of overrides that, and I think people forget that. I think they think I'm just a radio host and I don't investigate. What do I know? I know a lot. I know a lot more than people give me credit for. I do a lot more work than people give me credit for because I don't shout it from the rooftops. I'm not sitting here going...
when you was actually investigating, you was doing research on 30 East Drive, I think one of the comments that actually annoyed me was the fact that someone turned around and said that you can't really have an opinion because you haven't been there.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, well, you don't need to go somewhere to research it. There's enough information out there, whether it be on the internet or in the records office or anywhere else. You know, you don't need to go somewhere to research a location and draw your own conclusions.
No, it was. It's a common thing that's thrown at me. What do I know? You know, but at the end of the day, I'm not investigating every weekend. Does that make me a lesser person in the field because I'm not doing that? Because I haven't got that appeal to go out ghost hunting every single weekend or every Friday and Saturday night. You know, I actually prefer the road trip side of things, actually, where we go and visit a place and we see it in the day and we walk around. I like that side of it for visiting a location. Personally, that's personal preference. You know, how I work is a personal preference.
Yeah.
You know, it's like...
And it doesn't have to be a proper investigation to go out and pick things up from locations, or you don't even have to do it at night either. You know, as you said, on the road trips, you've come out with us plenty of times and you've picked things up as you've gone around, you know, so...
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, for me personally, sit in the cold and the dark in the middle of winter in a freezing cold location does not appeal to me whatsoever. You know, if it affects me for days afterwards, and I'm not talking a spiritual paranormal hangover, I'm talking about a physical hangover. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not getting no younger, guys. You know what I mean? It affects me physically. So for me, summer months, beautiful. Happy as Larry to go out in the field in the summer months. In the winter months, no thanks. I don't want to be sat in a cold, dark castle. Thanks very much. Because it affects me physically.
I know you also like going out into the woods, don't you?
Yeah.
And investigating woods.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't appeal to me. I've done it, but
Mm-hmm.
I just find it quite boring. No, not boring. That's the wrong word. It's just that there's so many other elements that you have to take into consideration. Like, you know, you'd have rats or badgers and stuff trampling around the place and making noises, and there's just too many external noises that can be explained away. And for me, it just sort of ruins the investigation a bit.
True, it depends on what your expectation is, I think, as well. I do love a wood. I do love to go out in a wood in the middle of the night. I mean, it sounds a bit pervy, but it's not. And I've had some of the most profound experiences doing investigations in that way, external investigations in that way.
And being attacked by a badger.
Yeah, and being attacked by a badger. But I've also, there was that. I've lost my train of thought now. I took straight back to that moment. Still haunts me to this day, that badger. No, mongooses and badgers in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
No, you know, but for me, for personal spiritual validation, I've had more validation, I suppose, in, you know, for going out doing that kind of investigation than I have. Oh, it's a difficult one because I've had plenty of validation in that way too, but I've had a lot of validation in that way from doing that kind of investigation, and that appeals to me. A wood in the middle of the night sings to my soul in some way that, I don't know, 30 East Drive, for example, I'm not slagging it off, but I'm just using that as an example, you understand, doesn't. You know, personal preference, isn't it, is what appeals to you. That appeals to me. Again, only in the summer months and not on a rainy night, just saying.
I can understand in the respect that, like, for example, some witchcraft and that, it's all natural. Mm-hmm. And being out in the woods, you've got the natural woods and everything growing around you and stuff. So I can understand why it does appeal to someone, but it just doesn't work for me.
The interesting part about the badger gate was I was in the middle of a ritual and this badger literally charged and disrupted the ritual, which never got finished. And from what we picked up, it's probably a good idea why I didn't finish that ritual.
Okay.
So it's interesting. It's nature then stepping in to stop something. I mean, we've had occasions where we were searching for a particular location, couldn't find it for the love nor money, and then literally stumbled across it 2 foot away from the path we'd walked. It was really weird. Then we did a little ritual within the the bit we were looking for, and again, the nature reaction was, yes, you could say it could have happened at coincidence. Could have easily been coincidence at that moment. The timing of it was weird, is all I'm going to say on that one. That's all I can say. It was incredibly strange. Something we keep saying we're going to go back and do. This year we are definitely doing it. There's no two ways about it. We was with Penny that night as well. Very, very interesting. I'm sorry, but that's, I suppose, because working with elementals and those kind of energies myself, that sings to my soul more. Rather than being a psychic medium where I pick up on spirits of humans, I work more with those kind of energies than the human element, I suppose, although I have picked up on humans too, but I find it easier to work with that. So is it down to appeal? Is it down to what you believe? Because that's my belief system is probably a little different from a lot of the ghost hunting community. is that the problem that people perceive, or just because it doesn't meld with their own opinions and belief systems? So the appeal to each individual will depend very much on their belief systems. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it does. Yeah, I mean, we're all different, so we're all going to appeal to different locations. Well, the locations are going to appeal to us. So what appeals to me, obviously quite clearly doesn't appeal to you, and vice versa. So we just need to respect that and move on. I mean, it's not a problem.
No, that's it. We respect it. And I think that's important within a team as well. Different opinions, different belief systems. I think that's really important. We work very closely together, Paul and I do, even though we come from very different perspectives. But we don't ever argue, do we? Well, occasionally we do, but we don't really get into that, well, I'm never talking to him again because we don't agree. We explore it.
No, because you from different
angles. Why does everybody got this opinion about me at the moment? Just do as I'm told. I don't think so. I just do my own thing. But we don't come to the point where we go, well, I'm not working with you.
There's no need to get that far. No.
Because it is good to have a different perspective. It challenges your own belief system and your own perspective at times to have that. Yeah, exactly. It helps you grow and learn from each other. Now, I just want to refer to the chat room again. The census of opinion does seem to point towards there is something going on, and investigators need to move to finding what's the cause as opposed to observing the effects. I've brought this up before as well, cause and effect. We've seen plenty of causes, but what's the cause? And then Richard says again about the going back to the research. I've never been to the moon, but he knows quite a bit about it. But Liam says he understands what we're saying, but research can only give you so much experience. To get your own personal experience, you'd have to go to the location to make up your own mind. That's a fair point. But I would have to go into the location if I've really researched it to the depth I have of 30 Years Drive without my spiritual hat. I'd have to go in purely and simply as an investigator on if something happened.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So again, you go back to hats, don't you?
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to experience the location to research it, though.
No.
You can just do the research and, you've got all the answers you need. You don't need to go to locations. But no, I mean, I'm the type of person that would. And it sort of just draws me back to the Auschwitz as well. I know the history, and I want to go there and experience it. So, yeah.
I would like to go there, but I don't want to go there either. It's one of those. Do you know what I mean? Because I just think I'd be in floods of tears the whole day. I don't think I'd be able to actually even get in the gate without crying, because I know so much.
My uncle went last year, and he said it was a very somber place. It was really strange. So, yeah, I still want to go there.
So the appeal of a location is very, very personal to a person, and which, we've explored various avenues tonight. It's very personal, isn't it? And a specific appeal to a location. After researching 30 East Drive, it holds no appeal to me. So I'm not really bothered about that personal experience there because I know too much, I suppose. Whereas, I don't know, Woodchester Mansion appeals to me, but I haven't researched it as much. You know what I mean?
I'm going there 7th of March.
Oh, are you now?
Yeah, me and Richard. Yeah.
Cool.
Forward to it. Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, on that bombshell, we have come to the end of the show. So before we go, is there any last comments from the chat room?
Let's have a look. Liam says a difference in opinion is a good thing because we can learn and grow from each other. The skills we know possibly could be transferred. I agree with that. Talking to people, learning from each other is integral in this field. Research, look at the work other people have done. Look at other people who have investigated. That's integral in this field. I'm not talking about para-unity. I'm talking about awareness, I think is the expression there. And great show we've had in the chat room, so thank you very much.
Fantastic.
As always. Don't forget, book a Parasearch, Paul.
Book a Parasearch, yep. It's available on Amazon worldwide. So whatever your country, just go to your local Amazon website, whichever it may be, and get your book, $7.99. And it's also going to be available from the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre as of Saturday.
Awesome. And don't forget, if you've read it and would like to leave us a lovely little review on Amazon, please do so.
Yes, please do so. And tell everyone what a wonderful book it is.
Yeah, we want 5 stars, please. Not telling you how to review it, but, you know.
Well, what's coming up in the following week as the week goes on?
Okay, so tomorrow evening on Haunted Histories, Penny has got the lovely Jane Harris in the studio talking all about Ettington Park that she investigated last weekend. Sounds like they had a great time there. Thursday evening, PSH Radio have got Le Paranormal in, talking all things hauntings and investigation techniques, as always. On Friday evening on the Dark Mirror Show, we're carrying on from last week's show, looking at psychic detectives, is what we're looking at on the Dark Mirror Show. There's a Q&A this week at 8 p.m. on Saturday. That's you, Paul. Honestly,
really?
Yeah, Saturday evening. You're doing a Q&A on the Parasearch Radio Facebook page. And trust me, I've got Lucy in on this, so she is going to pin you down and put the camera on you, even if you don't want to do it. Has he got any questions for my lovely Paul? Then go over there and post them up while he's having a chat. Keep him company while he's trying to talk, while he's waiting for questions. Then on a Sunday evening, we have a Conversations with show. I've got Mr. Andy Mercer back in the studio, and we're talking all about Dybbuk boxes and looking at whether they're a real thing or whether they're just a media hype.
Excellent. Sounds really good, all except Saturday. I think that's a bit rubbish one, that one.
Well, yeah. Lucy's just said he won't wiggle out of it, Kerry. Thank you, Lucy.
Yeah, just that. Okay, well, thank you for everyone that's in the chat room except Lucy there. And hope to see you all again next week back in the chat room. So it's a good night from Kerry.
Good night.
And it's a good night from me.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.